Welcome to the speaker series on a shot glass of recovery. This podcast is a place for real stories, honest conversations, and recovery lived one day at a time. The views and opinions shared here are simply our own personal experiences. We do not speak for or represent Alcoholics Anonymous as a whole.
You get a house, you get a car, then you start thinking that's all you are, but you don't know the truth. So let me spell it out for you. Now I got your attention, now there's a start. Now sit and listen to my favorite part. Life's been giving us some clues. The answer lies inside of
Thank you, and thank you for everyone that does service at this meeting. I'm Beth, I'm an alcoholic. It's customary where I'm from in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey, to give you my statistics. A loving God that I didn't want and didn't think that I needed gave me my sobriety date of August 1st of 2017. I did not pick that date. I have a sponsor. I say I have a sponsor because I don't have a sponsor in name only. This is someone who knows that she's my sponsor. For the love of AA, sometimes you guys really bug me. There's a lot more principles than just our 12 steps. I do service outside of my home group. I'm the alternate DCM for my district, and I serve in other areas in my area. For the love of AA, I have a service sponsor because you guys can really bug me, and I want to learn how to apply those other principles into my life. So, told you I have a home group. If you're not sure where Atlantic Highlands is, find Wall Street in New York City, draw a straight line down through the water. You will find my sleepy little shore town that is not so sleepy right now, because if you've ever seen the MTV Jersey Shore show, I am very close to there. So I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of what I drank and how I drank, because you could just watch that show and realize that I was one of those girls. We call this area cirrhosis by the sea. I didn't know really what I suffered from when I got in here because my entire life I performed, pretended, and tried to perfect making my outsides look okay. I didn't know because I haven't read your big blue book wrapped in ribbons of promises, more than just the 9-step promises, that I'm really like the actor. It says on page 73, I'll give you some examples of what it was like for me. More than most people, I lead a double life. I'm very much like the actor. To the outer world, I present my stage character. This is the one I like my fellows to see. I want to enjoy a certain reputation, but know in my heart I don't deserve it. I wanted to enjoy a lot of reputations, but I was blowing up my life drinking, so I felt like I was a hypocrite because I just couldn't enjoy that reputation because I would pull the house down over me with all my drinking affairs. You know, it's absolutely insane that I was out there for so long thinking it was everybody else. I lived my life as a victim. It was always you, it, my circumstances, and definitely him. And I was always the victim. My eyes always looked outwards. I walked around going, you make me feel. And I can still do that in sobriety if I'm not careful. I'm going to read a little short story that I love in the back of the book. It's in the Family Afterward on page 135. One of our friends is a smoker and coffee drinker. There's no doubt he overindulged. Seeing this and meaning to be helpful, his wife commenced to admonish him about it. He admitted he was overdoing these things, but frankly said that he was not ready to stop. His wife is one of those persons who really feels there is something rather sinful about these commodities, so she nagged, and her intolerance finally threw him into a fit of anger. He got drunk. What that says in 2026 language is that I've been walking around, you're the wet blanket, you're the problem, you're the nag. Don't you know what your lines are in interacting with me, and you make me feel. No one has the power to make me feel any certain way, but I don't want to take responsibility for me. I've never taken responsibility. It's just much easier to play the victim and blame you. I didn't know that playing the victim, complaining about the weather whenever I'm complaining about anything. I've made myself a victim, and I love being a victim. I find that a lot of my sponsees also love playing the victim. It seems to be an alcoholic trait that I didn't know that I had. I would have never put this language into my vocabulary when I was telling you when I was out there that that's what part of what I suffer from. I didn't know what I suffer from. So I live here at the Jersey Shore, cirrhosis by the sea. I'm going to go to the beach with my girlfriends. We're going to hang out. We're going to get a suntan. We're going to gossip. We're going to go for a swim. We're going to enjoy ourselves. And we're probably going to leave around 2 o'clock, but that's not what happens to me. Because once I pick up that first drink, I say I'm only going to have 2. I always end up way overshooting that mark and having more like 22. There is no shutoff valve in me. And what the big book tells me when I started reading it with my sponsor is that there's no shutoff valve. That's what we call the allergy. The first drink demands a second drink. The second drink demands a third drink. The third drink demands a fourth drink. But I've been singing the alcoholic anthem. I'm not doing that again, but I did it again, girl. So our big book, and when I start going through it with a sponsor, I find out that there's no good news in step 1, that when I'm at the beach, not only are all bets are off, but when everybody wants to go home at 2 o'clock and freshen up, take a nap, take a shower, because we're going to meet up for dinner later, I'm the one screaming at you, how dare you? You can't hang out with me. You want to go home, party's over, you're no fun. Like I'm a victim all the time. I just want everybody to do as I wish, as the third step says, because I don't know what it is that I suffer from. And better yet, Dr. Silkworth says in the doctor's opinion, complete abstinence is the answer for the allergy. Just don't pick up a drink. But I'm going to pick up a drink because there's no good news in step 1. Even at 8 years sober, August 1st, 2017, 8 years sober, the first step still says Beth is going to drink again. Now, I have a solution today, so I don't have to run around worrying and fearing all that. But I remember how powerless I am, and that if I don't continue to take the actions and pick up our design for a living, this mind will start doing me in, because the second part of what I suffer from is I have a mind that is going to get hijacked by thoughts that tell me it's a good idea to drink. And it doesn't matter. Like, we hear a lot of people coming out of treatment centers and traumas and triggers. My trigger was breathing. I don't need a reason to drink. I don't need something bad to happen to me. And the big book nails me in it. This guy, not a cloud on the horizon, his business came off well, and he finds a drink in his hand. I drink when it's sunny. I drink when it's raining. I drink when my team's winning. I drink when my team's losing. I drink no matter what. So I can't self-knowledge my way into not drinking. There is no reason. I used to ask all the time my sponsor, well, why? Why am I an alcoholic? Well, the big book says, why is not a spiritual question. We can't answer the riddle. 91 years later, AA just had its 91st birthday. There still is no medical solution that has made us not alcoholic. The gift that I get is I take this action, I go into step 1, and I feel the utter powerlessness. Because Bill's going to tell me a whole bunch of things millions of times. He's going to tell me a desire to stop, where I've had a lot of desire because the boyfriend was leaving. The family said you can't come for the holiday. A desire to stop is not enough. It earns me a seat in Alcoholics Anonymous, but when I look back at all my desires to stop, it only lasted for a little while. He goes on and he begins to say willpower. I always thought, because my dad used to say to me, just takes a little willpower, because he's an alcoholic like me. He's still without a solution, though. Just takes a little willpower, Beth. And I believe that. And the big book says it in Dr. Silkworth's story. That's frothy emotional appeal. When I look back and I look at all the willpower, trying to stay sober on willpower and wishing and willing it away, it didn't work. See, I'm not powerless over gambling. It's never occurred to me to go down to my local convenience store, my 7-Eleven, and buy a whole bunch of lottery tickets. Spend my whole paycheck, right? Because I'm not powerless over gambling. I don't belong in Gamblers Anonymous. I lose $20, I lose interest. But not so with alcohol. That's how I know I'm powerless over alcohol, because I don't have a problem with this other stuff. I could take it or leave it. I cannot take it or leave it. I have a mind that's going to get hijacked. It doesn't matter if I have the thought I shouldn't do that, or I know what's going to happen, because Bill also nails me down with consequences, fear. You can't scare me enough to stay sober. It might sober me up for a little while. It did sober me up for a little while. First, it was a couple months. Then that fear just diminishes. Listen, I've been to jail plenty of times. I just actually got a court card asking me to be a juror. And for the last 8 years of my sobriety, every time I tell them that I've been convicted, they always let me off the hook. So I'm finally like, finally, something bad that happened to me is serving good, that I don't have to go give all that free time wasting days in a courtroom. Anyways, but yes, I've been to jail a lot. Consequences. The first time I'm in jail, I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm never going to do it again. The second time, I'm like, I know the ropes. I know it's going to happen. I'm going to call a lawyer when I get out of here, blah, blah, blah. So Bill tells me things in so many different ways. He says, if the thoughts occur, Listen, the day of my bottom was a few days before August 1st because I don't learn from my first, second, or third bottom. I got to have a lot of bottoms and they got to get progressively worse because I have a progressive illness. I'm on a 2-day bender with my dad. He lives across the street from a beautiful lake. Him and I are drinking. I'm on day 2 of drinking with my father, and I thought this would never kill me because, see, I think I'm invincible. I'm burning my life to the ground, but I don't adjust it. I just adjust to pain. That's how my life works. I can see it. It's like the bar keeps getting lower, and I'm just like, well, the bar got lower. So the second day when I'm hanging out with my dad, we're drinking on the front porch, and all of a sudden I go down and I stop breathing. See, here's how this God that I didn't want and didn't think that I needed worked. I didn't want God when I walked into AA, but I live life forwards. I understand it backwards. When I look backwards, I was supposed to be across the street at the beach by myself because my dad was going to be in his garage in his workshop. If I had been by myself, I would have stopped breathing and nobody would have known, and I wouldn't be here with you today. So I can look back and I can see that God had a purpose all along, and that needed to happen for me to hit my bottom. But it didn't mean that I was done because when I left the hospital after crying my eyes out for 6 hours in humiliation on a gurney and seeing my dad and crying in the waiting room, not able to see me just look at their little glass window at his only child. Thank God from a man from behavioral health came down in the state of New Jersey, anything that's alcohol and drug related. It's mandatory to have a 6-hour good think, but I've had a lot of good thinks before, and I've sworn it off. I ain't doing that again, but I did it again, girl. But this man did what our big book says. He didn't sit there and say, you need to, you should. See, when I speak, I talk about me, I speak in the I to everyone. I don't know what everybody should do. I could share my experience of what I did, but I can't manage my own life. Why am I going to try to manage yours? Yes, I have a solution that works. Here's what works for me. Either you pick up the spiritual toolkit that I lay at your feet or you don't. But I don't run around going, you need to, you should, unless you're a sponsee. You've given me a little bit of spiritual consent. But I try to stay right size, right? Because I'm an alcoholic. I get in here and all of a sudden I think I got the answer for everybody. I know what you need to do. You're selfish and self-centered. I think God asked me to be loving and compassionate and to stay right-sized in my experience and the big book and prayer, and that's why sponsorship is so easy for me. I don't have to come up with anything new, and I don't have to tell you that I have your experience all the time. I can find you somebody in AA that does. So that day when I left the hospital after being so upset, I got in the car and my dad told me that he'd called my mother. Now, they'd been divorced. They were married for 30 years and he left her for a deaf woman. So my mom's got a lot of resentment there. And now my dad hasn't spoken to her for 10 years and he called her? How dare you? There I am, a victim again. He wants me to go to rehab and I'm screaming at my dad, how dare you call my mother? Because now the gig is up. Now I can't kind of manipulate her out of money. See, I'm so selfish and I behave so selfish and self-centeredly. I don't care what my dad just went through, practically losing his own daughter in front of his own eyes. I'm more concerned about me because it's all about me. I've been singing the opera song, me, 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 my entire life. And so when I leave, I'm disinvited from my dad's house. That's probably the best thing that he could have done, stop enabling me and told me to go home. And I'm so mad because look what just happened to me and you're uninviting me from your house. How dare you? Because everything's about me and you ain't hitting your mark and making me feel good and amazing. Look what just happened to me. Because my dad had cancer and I will make his cancer about me. Oh, my dad has cancer. How about I show up and I be of service to my dad instead of making it about me? No, I'm going to go drink and make it about me. That's how selfish and self-centered I can be. So I leave, but what I did do right, because that man at behavioral health had told me, you should go to a meeting. I needed to go to a meeting. He kept his story in the eye, as I just shared with you, but he suggested I go to a meeting, and I want everybody off my back, so I'm going to do it. But when I left that hospital, even though I knew I just died, even though the thought said, could happen again, Beth, you just left the hospital. The car pulls into the liquor store. Because I don't know I'm a relief-seeking missile and I want instant relief, that instant relief that I get at once by having a few drinks. So that by the time I show up to that meeting, I'm completely off my rocker. I am just drunk as a skunk. And thank God people didn't be like, oh my God, she's so disgusting. We don't shoot our wounded here. Somebody took me by the hand and said, do you have a desire not to drink? And I said, yes. And she said, well, when they're counting days, all I want you to say is you have a desire not to drink. because I was so crazy and everything, I did know because I'd been going to therapy for years trying to fix you because you're the problem. I'm always the victim. That therapist had been telling me that I needed to go to Alcoholics Anonymous and I needed to get a sponsor. So thank God we have committees. This is why I serve in my district. We have public information, we have CPC, we have people that reach out and keep these people informed. So my therapist was informed about what Alcoholics Anonymous does and was able to plant the seed. Thank God for that, because when I was drunk, I said, I think I need a sponsor. Now, those words aren't mine. That's God, because I don't ask for help. I'm too strong and intellectual. I don't need your help. I'll figure this out. I'm so delusional, and that's what Bill's whole story is about. What I love about Bill is he's got all these character defects like me. Like, listen, when I was in kindergarten, I fancied myself the line leader when they elected me. He fancied himself a leader. I look at his stuff and I'm like, oh yeah. Oh, yeah. He hops on the motorcycle and roars off over there as if that place is going to be better over there. I've made lots of geographical changes and job changes to kind of push down and get rid of that history that I had there. Or over there, I'll be happier because I tell myself a lot of stories because I don't know about the unmanageability in step one. I thought the unmanageability was now I'm sober, my life is manageable by me. No, it's not. The first bedevilment is we're having trouble with personal relationships. I said to my first sponsor, I'm not even in a relationship. She said, Beth, you don't have relationships with people. You have reactionships. Somebody says something you don't like and you're reacting. You don't know how to respond with love. Couldn't control our emotional nature. Well, in the beginning, I was on this roller coaster ride of just up and down with all these feelings. I feel, I don't feel. But in the same aspect, I give people more power over my mind and my emotions than I have. Here you go. Here you go, buddy, in the fast lane. You're going slow. Don't you know who I am? How dare you go the speed limit? The fast lane is for people that are moving fast. Quit camping in that lane. You start honking your horn at me, I will act like you got up this morning at 6 o'clock, rubbed your grubby little hands together, and if you see me out on the road, I know you're gonna do that because you're a jerk. Anybody else been singing that song about how everybody else sucks? Because that's what alcoholics do. So I look at this stuff, couldn't control my emotional nature, and I'm like, I'm starting to like, yeah, I can't. It goes on and it says, we were prey to misery and depression. I don't have misery and depression the way I used to have it in sobriety. But in my first month in sobriety, both my cats died within a week of each other. I was just devastated. And my sponsor said to me, Beth, why don't you call 3 people and say, how are you, and not talk about what just happened to you? And I'm like, so offended. How's that going to help me? But I had to learn that it is in self-forgetting and getting out of myself. The St. Francis prayer talks about self-forgetting, thinking of others more than ourselves. Yes, I need to develop a relationship with God, but I'm still talking step 1 here. I just had to start thinking of you more than myself. She would say, go sit down in a meeting and just listen. And I would think, oh, that's the last thing I want to do. Don't you know what just happened to me? She's like, I don't care how you feel, Beth. I care about your life. Because again, I've been walking around, I feel, I don't feel, I don't feel. I learned in AA that feelings make good servants, but they do not make good masters. Feelings don't get a vote anymore. They're too narcissistic, immature. Dr. Harry Tebow is one of our doctor friends, and he said he said alcoholics are narcissistic, egocentric core. I feel, I don't feel. That's what that means. My feelings don't get a vote. I have to take the right actions despite how I feel. I would show up a meeting in a real pissy mood, and all of a sudden I would be leaving that meeting feeling free. Just like when I went to the bar, I took a drink. I can't stand that person on the other side of the bar. 3 to 5 drinks in, I'm ready to plan a vacation with you. That's how I felt leaving a meeting when I took the right action. But I got an incredibly big ego that doesn't want to do anything. Because the ego is so intellectual, it needs to know how this program's going to work. I'm so intellectual, I've got to figure it out. And if it doesn't make sense and I don't know how it's going to work, I'm not going to do it. It's like I walk into the bathroom, you know those automatic hand dryers? You know, again, self-knowledge avails me nothing. I know if I stick my hands underneath them, they're going to dry my hands, but knowing is not enough. So Bill tells us over and over and over again, and I can get caught in that trap now that I'm 8 years sober. I know what I need to do. And that's where I have to bring a lot of 6 and 7 and some humility in my life because I know very little, and there's a lot I haven't had life experiences with. So I look at this stuff. I couldn't make a living. I said to her, "I still have a job." She says, "You can't make a living peacefully. You're always complaining and making yourself a victim of so and so. You wish you made more money. You're always a victim, Beth." Had a feeling with uselessness will put me with my family around Christmas, and I'll start singing that song real good. I can't do anything right. They're never happy. Like, can you believe what she said? We were full of fear. Well, I don't know about you, but I tell myself a really scary. I love playing a scary movie about what may or may not happen. And I'm going to really focus heavily about what may or may not happen. And I'm going to let it disturb me. And of course, I'm going to suck you into that if you're near me. Because I got to let you know how much pain I'm in from suffering from what's happening or what's not happening. It says we were unhappy, but I don't know about you, but I drug it in and still could pick up the story. If dot dot dot, then I could be happy. If I had the white picket fence and the 2.5 kids and the gorgeous husband, then I'll be happy. If I made more money, I'm always outside of the present, never satisfied with what I have right here, right now, right in front of this nose. Which in AA, I'm taught how to get into meditation where I learn to be okay in this moment, right here, right now, at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All is okay, but in 2.5 seconds later, my mind might be telling me another story, and I'm gonna listen to it, and I'm gonna believe it, and I'm gonna act on it. I'm gonna believe everything I feel, and that's insane. Says we couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. Well, the gift that I get in AA is today I absolutely get to be of help to other people. I had to get a service commitment right away, and today I absolutely don't always like doing service, but despite how I feel, I show up and do it because I want this program to exist long after I am no longer here for the unborn child. So then I get into step 2, and I have to come to believe in a power. It doesn't say I now believe, I come to believe in a power, and that is through the seeking. What I do every morning is I seek, I pray, and I read spiritual literature. Spiritual literature is going to be part of our 11th step where it says pick up some other stuff and start reading it. See, the most important part of my sobriety is having a relationship with God because there's 3 types of relationships in this world. There's my relationship with you all, there's my relationship with myself, and then there's my relationship with God. But I normally don't know that my relationship with God is off until I actually start realizing that my relationship with you or myself is off. And what I mean by myself is I'm the worst of the worst. I can't believe I did that. I made a mistake, and my mind makes it into a really big deal. So in step 2, I'm coming to believe that a power, and I'm getting rid of some of these God blocking, these obstinate, closed minded ideas. See, I have a lot of expectations on what a God should be because I've been shitting all over the place my entire life. I think life should be fair, and life is not fair. And I think because life hasn't been fair, that either God caused it or God didn't prevent it. And that's because of my immature basis of what I think a God should be. See, God never got in the car and took the keys out of my hands when I was going to drive drunk. God doesn't prevent things from happening. God says, I'm here. If you want me, you can seek me. I'm waiting. I love you, but I'm going to let you could blow up your life as much as you want, Beth. I'm waiting for you to come over here. And the things that I did because of my drinking and because God didn't stop and prevent it, I had an effect on the universe. The dominoes fell, and my behavior set and trained those dominoes to affect other people. And God didn't stop it. God has always been there. I have a good friend, Carol. She says, I don't invite God into my day. I invite myself into God's day. So I come out of step 2, at least willing to believe, and I get into step 3. And this is where I really got nailed to where I play God because I thought I was God. I'm the actor who wants to run the whole show. I want to arrange the lights, the show, the ballet, the scenery. You need to act right. You should get my script on what your lines are when interacting with me. If my arrangements would only stay put, if only you would do as I wish, life would be wonderful. But you're not a mind reader. And the truth is I have no power or control or whatever anybody else does, which is what's so great. I don't mutter the serenity prayer underneath my breath and think it's a good prayer, but it's not going to work until I actually look at it. What can't I control? Almost everything. What can I control? My behaviors, my mouth, my attitudes, my relationship with God. That gives me the wisdom to know the difference. And sometimes I actually have to put it on paper because I'm an alcoholic who wants control, which is what that third step is. I want everybody to act right for me to feel okay because it's always about me. Some people are never going to change in this world, and we live in a very much a cancel culture. You don't treat me right, I'm just going to cut you out of my life. My mother has borderline personality disorder. My mother calls me things like evil and a bunch of words that I won't repeat. I've always wanted a mom who would be a mom. My mom is never going to be a mom, but I used anger to try to manipulate my mom to get my mom to act right. It never worked. The reason why I used anger is because anger felt like power to me. And I love power, but step 2 says lack of power is our dilemma. I like anger because it's my familiarity. It's easy to default to. But anger is actually manipulation. I want to manipulate you to act a certain way because you didn't get my script, you didn't get my memo, you didn't get my rules. Underneath that is really fear. I'm afraid of something. But who wants to look at the fear? It's just much easier to get angry with you or just cancel you out. But God has assigned me the role of a daughter. So I don't get to just cut her out of my life. I get to show up differently in the way God would have me be, but I've learned a lot of lessons from this. Some people never change, and in order for me to love them, I must be willing to put up with some of their character defects, some of their defenses, some of their flaws. Why? Because God certainly has put up with enough of mine. I'm not perfect today. God doesn't love me any differently because I'm still being sometimes angry. Sometimes I told you I don't have relationships. I have reactionship. And God's not judging me and saying, let's cut Beth out of this deal today. So I learn how to love people and I learn how to use that serenity prayer. Love is more than a feeling. Love is a decision about how I will treat someone. Now, God's not asking me to let people walk all over me and abuse me, right? But it's asking me not to give up on people simply because they're difficult. And I learned how to do that in emotional sobriety in AA. I learned that these disturbances, where I trip is where my treasure is the gift that I get. See, I used to get so upset with my mom. My mom didn't show up at my wedding. My mom didn't show up at my wedding is the greatest gift because it completely disturbed me. But the gift that I got from that is that I stopped making my mom the arbiter of my value. My mom is no longer my higher power. So when my mom says things to me like I'm evil or controlling or disrespectful, I don't believe it anymore. It's like if you say to me, hey, Beth, I hate your green hair. I'm like, Charlene, I don't have green hair. You know? But if Joycey says to me, I think I've seen you speak before and you put on 10 pounds, my claws are going to come out on her because I have a body image issue. I have old ideas and beliefs, and that she hit one of them. So that's what we're doing in AA is we're uncovering, discovering, discarding, and we're looking at things that hurt, threaten, or interfere with my beliefs or what they stage character reputation that I want to believe and I want to enjoy. So I get down to the causes and conditions and I put them in black and white because I can't have this fantasy thinking that everybody is just going to act right so that I feel amazing and wonderful because it's never going to happen. So I get down in black and white in 4 and 5 and I begin to see the common manifestations of self. That's a little less self. I call the bondage of self the ego. And the ego's trilogy, I call it a triangle. On one side is fear, another side is anger, and another side is guilt. Whenever I have fear, anger, or guilt, nothing good's going to come out of my mouth. Nothing. Zip it. I got to wait till my little snow globe of emotions actually settles down before I can hear God. So my tree is leaning over really bad in my backyard. If it falls down, it's probably going to fall on the neighbor's side. In the state of New Jersey, if my tree falls in her yard, it's her problem. But I got 2 little dogs. She's got 2 little dogs. I'm going to get it cut down. I have the guys over here. We wait till winter because I don't want the chainsaw dust and the chainsaw oil to fall in our gorgeous pool. We agree. Winter, guys agree on a date so both of our dogs can be inside. They're back there for 5 minutes before I hear on my front door, knock, knock, knock. As they're proceeding to tell me that they were taking down her wooden fence temporarily to not break it, she pulls up in my driveway like a bat out of you-know-what. And I feel that emotional rise cropping up through my esophagus. Fear, anger, guilt. I don't know which one I'm in, but nothing good's going to come out of my mouth. And as she's waving her hands and all are crazy, and I realize in that moment, zip it, pause when agitated or doubtful. My little snow globe's getting shaken up, and I don't know what the right answer is, but I know I got two choices. I'm going to default to anger because how dare you? I was doing a good thing for both of us, and now you're preventing it? Or I'm going to be agreeable because I just want to shut you up because I hate chaos because I grew up in a chaotic home. And I'm going to self-abandon completely and just be agreeable to please you to get you off my front porch. Neither one are honoring myself. They're just reaction ships. And I realize in that moment, guys, I'll call you later. Deborah, I can't talk to you now. Now, people would say, oh, you dismissed her feelings, but I'm not responsible for hers and she's not responsible for mine. I am responsible for my feelings. That is what it's like to live in 2026, to take responsibility for myself, to not play the victim, to see what's coming up for me and why it's coming up for me. And so I sit down in my house and I write inventory and I wait till that snow globe settles down. And then I'm able to hear God and I share that with my sponsor. And what I ended up saying to Deborah, because she's blowing up my phone as I'm trying to sit quietly, I had to turn that phone over and ignore it. What I ended up saying to her is my truth, because the truth will set you free, we say in society. The truth is, Deborah, if the tree comes down, it's going to damage a lot more than your fence, period. Not, no, I was going to pay $4,000, but I was doing the right thing. Because I like to give the verbal vomit a long dissertation of how good I am. And I have to learn that who I am because of whose I am. This is why I say the truth will set you free. I don't need to rationalize, justify, explain anything anymore. If I'm right with God, then you don't need to hear the verbal vomit. It's just me trying to play the stage character again. You need to see me as good. I don't need to prove my worth to anyone because she's not the arbiter of my value any more than my mother is the arbiter of my value. But I've been assigning everybody else. Here you go. You can have more power from my mind and my emotions. Bad Brad at work and conniving Connie at work. Boy, oh boy, they used to get underneath my skin. Why? Because I'm giving them all the power. So the truth sets me free. The truth is is that I have God esteem today. And I work to have that. I work to have God confidence today. So I stop signing everyone else the arbiter of my value. So that my self-esteem, that I'm a good daughter, that I'm a good worker, that I'm a good neighbor, isn't constantly being hurt, threatened, or interfered with, where I have these big explosions because I know where I default to. See, I've always been labeling things outside myself as the problem. And then my behavior becomes the delivery system for the defense or the defective character. I don't like to say I have a defective character. I like to say that the character defects are defaults or defenses that I go back to because they're familiar to me. I like what's familiar, even if it's sitting in a you-know-what kind of diaper. I like sitting in the muck. We all like darkness. Turn on the news. Come on. We get so hooked. Everybody in this world gets hooked by the darkness. There's something in this darkness. But I learn in AA that where there's darkness, there's also light. Like, think about a shadow. Whenever there's a shadow, there's a light for that. So what we're doing is we're shining a light in this darkness so that it has less power over it. But this false self, this stage character, this ego, this bondage to self gets disconnected from the divine self constantly. So I don't walk on water. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. I could tell you lots of stories where I behave badly, but the gift is that I make amends more promptly and I don't behave as bad or as often as I used to. But I still can get driven by this infantile ego and demand that people or circumstances supply me with my self-esteem, prestige, and security, and then I still play the victim. Right? Ego comes from a place of lack and attack or lack and limitation. I had no idea. When I fall into these old ideas and beliefs, I lose access to this unchangeable identity in God that I needed to have. My God had to get a lot bigger than the one that I walked in with. Step 6 is telling me that step 6 is the only other step that I'm powerless in besides step 1. I'm powerless over what comes up for me, these thoughts, these feelings. I'm not just going to be, they're never going to happen again. I'm going to stop them. What I resist persists, so I'm powerless in what comes up for me. But hopefully step 6 says I find it objectionable. Because if I don't find it objectionable, I don't have a step 7. There's a lot of times I don't find it objectionable because I find pleasure in staying angry sometimes or whatever it may be. But the gift is that I get to awake and aware more often than I used to. So in those moments when my neighbor is disturbing me, in those moments when somebody's really gotten into my skin, in those moments when somebody's really displeased with me and I want to react and get it off of me right away, in those moments, hopefully I find it objectionable for what's coming up so that I can go to God in the moment that it happens and ask God for a new perspective in that moment. And 2.5 seconds later, it might be back on me again, and I go to God again. God, help me do, see, think, and act and feel as you, God, would have me do, see, think, act, and feel. Because what I'm going to do, see, act, and feel, it ain't going to be pretty, and it's normally going to do a lot of damage. 6 and 7 is not something I work on. I hear a lot of people, "I'm working on my character defects." I'm like, "No, please don't do that." What I end up is with a more self-centered version of myself. Self 6 and 7 is not a self-improvement project so that I like myself better or that I like you better. God is not taking all my character defects away because sometimes God has a lot of usefulness, especially with sponsees, so that I could show up and I can tell these stories of how I behaved ungodly, unspiritual, not Miss AA, but how I got to the solution a lot quicker. So God says, I'm not going to take these things from you because sometimes, Beth, on my timing, you need to feel enough pain so that you give up letting other people be the arbiter of your value. Because the only way you're gonna learn is through pain sometimes, Beth. So I love 6 and 7 because it's not a self-improvement project. It's more about surrender and humility. It's about awakening from these old ideas and being willing to go to God to ask for a new perspective and knowing that it's on God's timing and in his own way, but get enough of me out of the way so that I can be useful to you. 'Cause that's what the whole goal here is. It isn't self-forgetting. See, the truth will set you free. The truth is I am not a selfish, self-centered person. I can behave that way. I use different language than running around calling myself, "I'm so selfish and self-centered." I think God has given me a lot more better traits and characteristics and that I can behave that way, and I wanna stay right-sized in that. I think when we read the 11th step, St. Francis' prayer that I am, now that God resides deep down inside every man, woman, and child, I am those glorious words, but I can certainly default really easily into the opposites. Without God, I act in those opposite words. But with God, it's possible for me. The truth about who I am is I am love. I am comfort. I am hope. I am understanding. But I get disconnected because I have spiritual amnesia. I have alcoholism, right? Incredibly short memory, which is why I stay here with all of you because I'm much better with all of you than on my own because I tend to forget how to live these things. So, my husband, he's a country bumpkin. He moves here from Ohio and New Jersey. We drive like New Yorkers in New Jersey. You can only imagine. So, I thought it was fine to emasculate my husband when he doesn't pull out of a place and into traffic quick enough. There's a big opening. Why didn't you move? I go down to see my sponsor who lives down in Florida in an older retirement community, and she's quite a bit older than me. And I proceed to tell her about my bad behavior because I learned to be honest here and not only present God and my sponsor with how good I am. See, God doesn't want my good intentions. God says, you got to bring this stuff to me, your weaknesses, Beth, because I'm going to heal that. I don't want your good intentions. I already know your heart, but I know you're human. So I rat myself out to my sponsor, and my sponsor says to me, you've been driving around with me all week. How come you didn't say anything about my driving? Yeah. We say homes, occupations, and affairs for a reason. You know, in the beginning, I needed service, service, service in the beginning for AA and sobriety. Today, it needs to be a little more balanced. Nowhere does it say that I say yes to everything in Alcoholics Anonymous in our big book because I will get over serviced and then I will unleash something non spiritual on people because I believe in service, 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 service keeps me sober. No, we can't forget that there's these other steps that need to be done. And yes, I do need to do service, but homes, occupations, and affairs are where I need to bring these principles. And my home is the biggest one that I need to practice. And I felt it was okay to emasculate my husband. And the story that I told myself, because again, I tell myself lots of stories. I rationalize and justify why it's okay to behave the way I behave. And so I tell myself this story that my husband doesn't drive right, and it's okay for me to say whatever I'm going to say to him because I feel unsafe. Now, my husband has never been in an accident and never had a ticket. So, yeah, okay. So really, when I look underneath that I'm unsafe and I'm actually controlling, but the story that I told myself is that I feel unsafe. And what ego does, what I do, is whenever I feel uncomfortable, because I hate feeling uncomfortable, is I got to get it off me. So I'm just going to shove it off me as quick as I can. Because that's how selfish and self-centered I can behave, is I don't want to deal with me. I'm going to get rid of it at the expense of you. So my poor husband, I end up making amends to him. He still doesn't really wanna drive with me. When we go on our Canada trip, I let him drive. But the truth is I have to say to him, "I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have treated you that way." When I get down to the causes and conditions and I see past all the BS that this is trying to tell me, "Oh, you're just being controlling again." No, you're telling yourself a scary movie that you're unsafe. Is that true? Are you just rationalizing and justifying yourself and why it's okay to get it off of you? Because isn't it always about me? I got to get this off of me, and I'm going to get you to act right. Live by my rules that I haven't told you about. Live by my expectations. Make me feel amazing and okay. You don't do the dishes for 2 days. Boy, oh boy, my mind starts telling me a really scary movie that he is never going to do the dishes. And how awful is that? Because if he never does the dishes, then oh my God, I'm going to have to do the dishes. That's awful. That's how I can show up to life. It's so insane. This is why I do so much better with all of you. But I'm so thankful for the gifts because, like I said, these disturbances are the very things that I get to look at and I'm so thankful for. I'll end with this. I'm walking the dog a couple years ago. The dog poops. I go to pick it up with a poop bag. My finger goes through the poop bag. I'm really upset. I've got dog poop on my finger. I never throw it in anybody else's trash can because you know what happens when it's warm in summer and you throw it in mine, it sticks to the bottom. You never get it out until winter at least. And then you got to dive in there to even get it out. But on this day, I threw it in somebody's trash can because I'm really upset. I got one hand of the leash and I got a poopy finger. Well, somebody sees me throw it in a trash can. She's in her car. She's on her phone. She gets out of her car. She's screaming at me, and I feel that emotional discomfort. Ugh. Somebody is displeased with me. I gotta react because ego wants relief right now. I gotta get this off me, back onto you. How dare you? It's in those moments where I can have a pause, fear, anger, guilt. Say nothing. Nothing good's going to come out of my mouth. It's in those moments, the pauses and gaps in between my emotions and my mouth. That's the opportunity sometimes for God to come in if I'm willing. Now, I don't get intuitive thoughts all the time, but sometimes I do, and that's the gift that I get. The intuitive thought was, do you want me to go get it out of the garbage can? That's not me. Me is coming at you. How dare you? Or just flipping you off and keep walking by, whatever. What she says to me is, "No, that's not my garbage can." The emotional hair fire goes back up. It's not even her garbage can. She's screaming about it. Like, this is it's okay that my mind does that. I'm perfectly human. God loves me as I am. I am no surprise to God. But I'm so thankful for a loving God that's not going to punish me for having those thoughts, but I don't always have to react on them. She said, "No, it's not even my garbage can. I don't want to, you don't need to go get it." And I said, "Okay, have a nice day." See, my home group is around the corner from both of our houses. A few months after this happened, I'm walking by her house, walking the dog on a really windy day. Her garbage can is blown over and there's White Claws all over the road. See, the gift is that she can walk into my home group down those stairs and I don't have to look the other way in shame. I didn't come home and have a million conversations with myself about woulda, coulda, shoulda said. The gift is that I get these big islands of peace in my life. Sometimes I go for a swim. It's not about, but it is, but it's not, I'm a law abiding citizen, that I have a nice car, that I have a lovable husband and a home today. And that's those are benefits and perks, but the real gifts are that I'm not doing damage and I'm walking around with peace and that I lay my head on the pillow and I'm not having arguments with you in the shower. I have big islands of peace today. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to enjoy a shot glass of recovery. If you'd like to help support the show, you can make a voluntary contribution through PayPal at A Shot Glass of Recovery. Every donation, no matter the amount, helps cover the costs of producing the podcast and allows us to keep sharing stories of hope and recovery. Thanks again for your support. It truly means a lot.
Everything you do, the answer lies inside you.